What if burnout was actually the beginning of your breakthrough? Robert Matzkin went from grinding 16-hour days across multiple startups to advising billion-dollar ventures and building private leadership summits for elite CEOs. In this episode, we dive into the mindset shifts that changed his life, the revenue strategies, and the scaling the company fast. You've said that burnout was a turning point, not a failure. What was the very first thing that changed in your life or business that set you on that different path?
Yeah, it was just the realization, the opening that stuff wasn't working. And that moment that it clicked that, hey, the way I'm going about things isn't cutting it. And from that moment on, I realized everything shifted. And it was the greatest thing that happened to me when I had that realization.
And what was that realization? When did you feel that, and how did you respond when you had that realization?
It was really, there was a lot of things happening that I was like, this isn't working, this isn't happening, I'm really frustrated, I'm really overwhelmed. And then it was just a splash of water in the face from one of my co-founders just being like, people don't like you, you're really edgy, you're just a jerk. And it's happened repeatedly in my life, that happens. But it's really when I'm overwhelmed, I don't have patience or time for myself, let alone anyone else. And it's those moments. So when that happens, and that happened the first time, I went down a rabbit hole of personal growth and development and completely transformed who I am today into the leader that's capable of doing what I am today. And without that, nothing would have been possible.
So what was the old self like? What was the characteristics of that, and what was the transformation?
Oh, sure. So it was funny. I just reached out to one of my high school buddies randomly on Instagram yesterday, and I was like, oh, I had my sense of humor from back in the day. And I was a bro. I was a college wrestler. I was hyper aggressive. My sister would call me a bro, but really hyper aggressive. As I said, a college athlete, always looking for a fight, always on edge. Confrontation was my happy place. Yeah, so that classic New Yorker is the way to look at it.
And then what was the transformation like? Like you said, you then started as an element of self-discovery and learning. What was the transformation into?
Yeah, so it was interesting, right? So I've done a ton of Tony Robbins, I've done a ton of Landmark Education Group, but it really is, I even feel the difference in my body. My nature wants to be like this when my old way, and here. So it's definitely like a huge weight off my shoulders, relaxing into things, being more Socratic, being more empathic and heart-led versus strategic-led, and finding that balance is always the key now. But really easing in and realizing that aggression isn't the way to get anything, and stopping, and all these cliches, right? Stopping to smell the roses, and life's about the moment, and really just analyzing and understanding some past traumas. I'm sure we'll get into that later, of how I got to be the way I am, and really finding who I really am and meant to be is, I guess, the journey.
It's a really interesting thing. I appreciate you being so open and honest about burnout, because it's something that a lot of people face or are facing at the moment. I'm sure there's a number of listeners and viewers that are going through something like that. What advice would you give someone who thinks they might have sort of characteristics of burnout?
Yeah. So first of all, the term burnout is, I think, a little triggering for me and many people, because burnout also means overwhelm, right? And maybe you're just working too hard. But I've gone through many iterations of burnout, and it looks like different things, right? But even just recently, I think it's just an overwhelming amount of stress, whether it's coming from personal finances, work, or whatnot. And it could be as simple as finances. It could be as simple as dwelling on something and not being able to let go. But I think the best advice I have for somebody is really simple. It's, where do you find your center? How do you put a smile on your face? And how do you actually not think about what's causing that burnout? And that could be meditation. That could be having fun with your family, with your friends. That could be sports. That could be anything. But bringing more things that bring joy into our lives, and not just keeping our heads down and powering through. And with that being said, we're all entrepreneurs. There's absolutely a time to sprint. But I think we tend to think that it's a sprint for years. Sprints are weeks. Sprints are maybe a month. Sprints are not years. Yeah, okay, you need to put your head down for a year. Maybe I get that in extenuating circumstances. But if this has been like that for a long period of time, chances are you're probably seeing some signs of burnout. And it is about our life, our journey,
What brings you joy now?
and having fun while we do it. What brings me joy now? Joy is an interesting word. I'll say this. What brings me happiness is kite surfing, is my friends, is cooking. So kite surfing is my main sport. I've done every sport under the sun, and kite surfing is where it is at. And then my friends, great conversations, great people, I think makes me happy and joyful. But another question would be fulfillment. And what fulfills me is making a huge impact into other people's lives and making a difference. So I have the joy and the privilege of doing that for a profession these days as well, with multiple different entities.
Amazing. Thank you for your honesty and openness. So you've built
You're welcome.
ventures across everything from alcohol to delivery to digital learning. What was the moment you first realized that you needed or wanted to be an entrepreneur?
There's two moments. I think I grew up as an entrepreneur. My dad, the way me and my dad even today still communicate in a lot of ways is about business. My dad was an entrepreneur. He ran our family business for, I think 50 years, 45 years. So we were growing up at the dinner table talking about work and business. And I always thought I was going to go into the family business. And everybody looks at nepotism and go, oh, they had it easy. Going into a family business was the hardest thing I had to do and was the most miserable year of my life. So I respect anybody that can manage their family business because the dynamics are intense. So I always thought I was going to do that. And then I realized, no, that's not even what I wanted to do, let alone can do it, because the dynamics are just too much for me. And I'd be miserable, and I'd still be that old, aggressive human, which isn't who I want to be. But there was just a moment, I was like, no, you are an entrepreneur, you do love business, you do love the creation, and let's just go for it. And you've always been doing that. But there's this newfound realization. But it was always just a way of being. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. And it's an interesting one because I think entrepreneurs can be made and can be completely innate in their soul. So I personally went through a journey where I worked in corporate and then I wanted to run my own businesses, and I had to learn those experiences and understand the mindset and the way that I needed to behave to be able to start running a business. I also like the the idea like the lemonade stand and the washing of the cars and always hustling. So I think they can be both innate and also learnt as well. But that was something your family centered you around business and business ownership.
Yeah, it was just always the thing to do. But it was more of the way my mind works from an entrepreneur perspective is, oh, there's a problem. Somebody should solve that. I should solve that. Oh, there's a problem. I see the world differently, and there's a problem and there's a gap. Can I step into that gap? Can I fix that gap? And can I make money on that gap? I'm going to go do that. So that's just the way my mind works. And it's just, I see that all the time. So I can't not see it.
Yeah.
Right? And I see opportunities, and now with my wisdom, it's, oh, okay, now is that the choice for me and where I want to put my energy?
Look, many founders struggle with finding their why. What did you discover when you thought about what your why should be, and how has it influenced your decisions?
Mr. Simon Sinek over here. I think my why is, how do I make an impact? My why is, I want to make a difference for people, right? And that comes out in many different shapes and forms, right? And my why is, I get huge gratification in sharing my wisdom and people not going through what I went through.
Are you tired of chasing clients and feeling like the only way to grow is to work harder and harder? Imagine instead having a steady stream of qualified clients coming to you because they know exactly who you are and why they need your help. That's what Christine Campbell Rapin is all about. Christine is the founder of Clear Acceleration Inc. and the creator of Turn On Your Waterfall movement. She works with entrepreneurs and business owners to cut through the noise, sharpen their messaging, and build simple systems that consistently attract clients without burnout and without gimmicks. If you want to discover how to stop chasing and start attracting, Christine has built resources and training designed exactly for you. Her work is trusted by business owners who are serious about creating consistent growth without the overwhelm. So here's what to do next. Go to the description below and click on the link and sign up. Take that first step today and start building consistent growth in your business with Christine Campbell. And I heard this recently, this whole idea of wisdom. That once you hit your 40s and above, you actually have wisdom to be able to share and also live your life with. Where in your 20s, you're proving yourself, you've got ego, you've got drive to be able to do that. You've mentioned a couple of times that word wisdom. How do you think your life has changed with those extra years that wisdom is now part of how you live your life?
Yeah, let me also redefine wisdom. The definition that changed my life was, let me make sure I get this correctly, but the definition of wisdom that I love to use is if I could learn from others' mistakes as if they are my own, I will have an infinite amount of wisdom, right? If I have 10 advisors with 30 years of business wisdom, right, now all of a sudden I have 300 years of wisdom behind me. And if I could truly take on their wisdom as my own, it's game changing, right? So the way I look at wisdom is, yeah, I have opinions about things and I have knowings, and in many ways that could hinder me. But just got into it with a client of mine last week, and he's like, I have to do it this way because this is the way. You don't understand medical. And I'm like, I do. And I'm like, you need to keep it simple, and we're going. And I just stopped, and I just started talking about, listen, my experience is, my fear is, and these are my learnings. And you could choose what to do. You want to say it's wisdom, you could choose what to do with that, but it's still an opinion based on experience, right? So I think the difference between me in my 20s versus now is the ability to, one, know I'm not right, two, know I'm not the smartest person in the room, and three, be curious and ask questions and not be fearful. I think the difference in my 20s is I was afraid and threatened by, oh, this person might make me seem stupid, or this person might make me feel this or that. Like the corporate adage that I really do love is, only one of the very few corporate adages that I do, is hire people smarter than you and better than you. And nobody does it. I think that's the problem with corporations at the end of the day. Anyway, I'll stop my tangent, but that's...
No, I get that. I get that.
Answer.
What is your current endeavor? What is your current business that you're really working for, focusing on now?
Yeah, business is, but my main business right now in relevance to this is really two. One is I do really executive coaching and consulting, right? I really help businesses earn more money, especially startups, go to market strategy, product market fit, pivots, redesigns of organizations, especially with tech, and then especially when it comes to fundraising, particularly of how to raise money. I think the environment has changed quite a bit, so people need more and more support with that. So I do a lot of that and just overall business growth and health. Pause, stop, start. I also run a business retreat called Bond Summit, where we bring together purpose-driven entrepreneurs from all over the country. I think by the time this airs, we'll have done our next one, or we'll be doing our next one, which is October 6th.
Amazing. So tell me about the Bond Summit.
Yeah, so Bond Summit, I created it from really a selfish place where I was meeting and networking so many people across the globe, and I spent a year basically on the road 90% of the time. And what I realized is to have the intersection of somebody who's purpose-driven in entrepreneurship, ambitious, and capable of changing the world, those are the people that I want to be around. Those are the people that I want to get behind. And that's who I really want in my life. So I created Bond Summit as a siren call to them to say, how do we bring these people together and elevate us all through the right content and community to really take us to the next level?
It's a great idea. So it's building on networking and building it into a group of people that get together face to face, which is something I think a lot of business
Yeah.
owners are thirsting for now. We're spending a lot of time on Zoom and online, and so I think the idea of face to face
Yeah.
stuff incredibly valuable.
It is, and I don't want to say networking is such an interesting tool. When I hear networking, and I do a lot of networking and I host a lot of events, but networking is who could I meet and how can we match? Bond Summit is who can we bring in the room, and they're not going to be able to directly help you and make a business connection for you or open an opportunity. But that other individual and that being around those other individuals will transform who you are as a human, as a business leader, and just elevate you and take you to the next level. And that's what it's all about. And that's what I really feel by bringing people together. It's not about, oh, this person's going to make an opportunity for me. No, they're going to change who I am, and I'm going to be different when I leave. That's what we look at. And again, for me, what really lights me up is being around the greatest people in the world, and how do I bring them together in my own flavor and be around them. That's what I crave. So again, it was from a selfish place, and I think everybody else really needs that. The more we are the result of our 5 closest people in our life.
And can you give an example of someone that their life has been transformed by the Bond Summit and what they typically experience?
Yeah, so I don't want to, I try and keep most of our members private, but I'll say this. I could speak about any one of our members, but one of our members, coming to the first summit, he was so locked up and so fearful, and he's taking a huge swing. He's really trying to transform healthcare and a disease that affects over 100 million people. And it's an 8-year journey and raising tens of millions of dollars. And who he was being when he first came was very locked up, very fearful, very tight. And what we've seen over the last few summits is who he is as a leader now, and is just something shifted in him where now he's just so free and so at ease, even though it's gotten even harder and more stressful and more near-death experiences. The way he handles everything with grace and leadership, and he just has a whole new way of being about him that it's hard to describe. It's like somebody who is just locked up and like somebody who's just stiff versus somebody who became like this yoga ninja overnight.
That's amazing. And how regularly do you run the Bond Summits?
Yeah. 2 to 3 times a year.
Amazing. And are they different locations?
Yeah. Always in the U.S. and we usually in North America, and and we always mix it up.
So to your coaching side, what do you find is one of the most common blind spots that the clients that you work with when it comes to revenue or growth strategies?
I think the drum I've been beating recently is testing. And it seems so mundane. And it's something that I have a hard time doing with. But how do we make data-driven decisions? And how do we lead through our decisions through data? And I don't just mean looking at the analytics. But it's so common for us to sit around a table, have a conversation, and go, I think this is what the market needs and is going to do. And who's going to, okay, prove it. Run a test. Run one test at a time, get a yes or no answer, and don't skew the test that you want to prove your answer, what you want to do, correct. Get a yes or no, and run those tests within a day or a week. Run them quickly, cheaply, and effectively. And the more tests you could run, so you can empirically see this works or doesn't work, right? It could be as simple, I'm doing some email outreach, right? And I'm testing 2 different subject lines. And I have a small sample size right now. I started it last week, and I'll go, oh, the sample size is too small, but both emails work, both subject lines work. Okay, it doesn't matter, right? But now I know it doesn't matter, and it doesn't matter which way I go, but I have some empirical knowledge versus what I think. Don't go off your opinions, go off what the market's saying. And the more you could do that, and the quicker you get feedback. I have another client who he's running a market test, and it was a test that we came up with in March, and we're finally going live with it, and we might get results next month, but a test that I thought was going to be empirically was going to be a few weeks has now turned into half a year and has turned into the new business plan, which now that's scary because now we've turned a test into a make or break situation versus was there a way of doing it lightly and getting empirical feedback quickly? Turns out there wasn't, and this became a big thing, but that's also the risk, right? So it's running quick tests. That's my biggest advice on business growth across the board. It's the simplest.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think marketing should be based on data, should be based on testing small incremental things and seeing what works and what doesn't work. Why do you think? Because there's a saying like if you can't measure it, then it's not marketing.
But there's a whole. But I'm not. By the way, I'm not an inherent marketer. I'm talking about marketing. I'm talking about sales. I'm talking about investors. I'm talking about anything that you do in your organization. I'm talking about development. I'm talking about strategy. I'm talking about product. There isn't a thing in the business that you can't and shouldn't test. Because especially when you have the time and the resources, but even if you don't, that's no excuse. Because going back to what I said a few minutes ago, the difference between now in my 20s versus now is I know I'm not the smartest person in the room. I know I could engineer the solution. I know what the solution I think it is. But me going by that, I'm going to be wrong at some point. I just am. It kills my ego. It really does. But I know I'm going to be wrong at some point. And even if I'm right 90% of the time and I'm wrong 10, and we go down that path for too long without feedback, without testing, we're screwed. So if I'm testing along the way and even just verifying and I'm getting feedback and shifting that path, it's way easier, it's way less expensive, it's way faster.
Yeah. And
it's way less stressful
well,
too.
is it because you're making decisions quicker and you're testing and then being driven by each decision rather than creating a huge plan that then it's like whether it's going to work or not?
Yeah, the weight of the world is on my shoulders if I'm doing the strategy and I'm right or wrong. And that's when I'm sleeping, that's when I'm not sleeping and dwelling on my things and spinning and I got to create and it's just a lot. But if, okay, I'm running a test. Does it work or does it not? Okay, it doesn't work. Okay, what's the next test we run? Okay, what are the next 5 tests we run? Okay, I'm just going to create a bunch of tests. Okay, the data's going to tell me. The data's going to tell me in a week or not.
Yeah.
There's nothing that I have to spin on. It's going to be what it's going to be, and I could be in the moment, and I don't even need here's the other thing, going back to the burnout conversation, it's just my whole way of being has changed, right? But this is the difference in where I think when I'm really on fire, right? When I'm really doing well, I could default into my normal way of being, which is going to lead to burnout. But if I'm running a test, there's nothing to do until I get the results back. Oh, but we should have a meeting and we should talk about what happens. No, when we have the data and we know what the map is, we'll have A or B, we'll go this way or we'll go that way. Okay, I'll think about if it doesn't work what we'll do, but I'm not going to dwell on it. If it works, great. We know what we're doing. But there's nothing to do to that. So it's just ease versus we want to, especially I think in corporate, we want to plan and anticipate and write it up and I'll create it in the moment. There's an hour of work to do if it goes wrong and we'll lock that in. It's not like we need to play 10, 15. So I think I'll speak from a duality, right? I play chess and I think 15 moves ahead and I know where I'm going and I know my big, hairy, audacious goal. And I have my North Star. But how I get there on a day-to-day basis, if I'm doing it right and I'm testing, I'll get there. And I have confidence in myself and I have confidence in my execution that I'll get there. But to plan out an 18-month thing to do day by day, it's going to beat you up.
Yeah. So you talked about helping your clients when it comes to investment and funding and things like that. It's one of the areas that I think my audience are sometimes a little bit fearful of, a little bit like worried about the role of investment and how it can impact your business. How do you help your clients when it comes to investment?
It's across the board. It's who's going to be the right investor for you? How much money do you really need to raise? Why are you actually raising those funds? How are you going to find those investors? How do you create the right deal terms to make sure that you maintain control, that all these different things. There's the whole world of investment and making sure it's right for you and making sure it's the right timing and size. And so just navigating that all the way through to a successful fundraise.
What's the question you would ask someone whether they're thinking about maybe I should get investment?
What's the money going to be used for? And why is the investor going to say yes? How is the investor going to see a 50x return, if it's venture money, a 50x return on their money, right? If it's a bank loan, it's something different. But if it's venture capital, it's how are they going to see a 50x or above return on their money in 4 to 5 years? And what are you going to use it for to get there? So
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. Look, you help clients in tech and business. How do you keep your clients relevant, agile, and sort of ahead of the curve when it comes to something that's so rapidly moving like tech?
Is tech moving rapidly is what comes to mind, because there's two different things. The technology and the hardcore development, it's a misnomer of a question, because the founder's coming with those resources, and the idea that they have is actually almost stationary in time, because they're saying, I'm going to develop this product, and I'm going to take 3 to 6 to 12 months to develop this out. But in that time, tech's evolving, but they're stagnant, and then they need more money to reinvent that tech. But from a business perspective, SaaS hasn't changed, go-to-market strategies haven't changed, all the doctrine and principles haven't changed. Even with AI today, until we get an AGI and things really change, we got to stay on top of it. But the core principles and fundamentals of good business aren't adapting yet. So it's actually, how do I keep my clients rooted in core principles, free of the distractions and noise, is what I tend to focus on. And the evolution of tech, just stay current, right? And that's what your technology partners are for. That's what your CTO is for, the actual hardcore bit of it, to make those choices. And every time I get involved in the nuance of it, I tend to screw it up, even though I've always been an executive in technology companies, but I demur to the smarter people in the room.
So would you say AI is not a rapidly changing technology?
I don't know. It's a confusing question, because here's why. Has it evolved rapidly over the last 2 years? Absolutely. Is it finally reaching its potential of what we thought it could do 2 years ago? It is. I think a lot of people, including me, are questioning, hey, ChatGPT 5, was it a huge step forward? Was it this giant leap that Sam Altman was talking about? There's some huge fields and huge disruptions, right? What Grok 4 was able to do with the amount of research and passing tests and breakthroughs that we could have in research in certain fields, it's tremendous, its capability. Yet it also is tremendous in its limitations right now. And that could change. Like, by the time this podcast airs, I could be completely wrong. This will not age, I'm afraid, right? But right now, I think a lot of people are very fearful of how rapidly things are changing. And there's a lot of people throwing all these ads out of, you got to reinvent your business with agents, and look what I did with all. It's maybe we'll get there in the next 3 to 6 months. Listen, we don't need to be the cutting edge 2% early adopters on AI. I think we need to be the early adapters, right? That second 30%, if I'm remembering correctly. And we want to be right on the wave. But I used to be a big surfer, right? And one of the things with surfing that's so hard, once you're on the wave, that's the fun part. That's actually the easy part. The hard part is what time of day to go based on tides and conditions, where to sit in the water, how far out, which wave, and seeing the waves as they come, with enough time to move your position in the water, when to start paddling, where to paddle to, and then finally when to pop. Now, my point of saying all that is to get that decent wave, you have to be in the right position at the right time and move at the right time with the amount of energy. If I paddle too soon or choose the wrong wave or I'm out of position, any of those things are wrong. By the time I get to the wave, I'm exhausted and there's not much of the wave left. So if we are like, the wave is here and it's in 3 months and we're going to start paddling now and lose all our energy, I wouldn't advise that. But the wave's coming, being prepared for it, looking for it. Like a lot of surfers, we sit for 30 minutes before we paddle for a wave, right? And they're the most zen people ever, waiting or chatting, right? And you're just waiting for that perfect moment. So be prepared, be ready. But what we want to see is the wave coming, there's a little white water, there's a little water on top. Then we move to it, then we know it's our wave. But let's wait for it to be our wave and wait for that empirical evidence of that little white water happening versus paddling everywhere using our resources going crazy. That was a little
No, I get it.
but
I get it. I think it's very sage advice. I think it shows your wisdom, because everyone that I'm speaking to it goes into two camps. One camp is just putting their hands in the air going, this is changing too fast, I'm not ready for this, I'm not ready to move yet. And then there's the earlier adopters who are embracing it and feeling that they're part of that wave, of that movement.
Everybody is sensationalizing.
Yeah, well, it sells papers, it sells news time, doesn't it?
Right? But and I was losing my mind 6 months ago. I'm going, oh my God, I'm going to be replaced by a robot, all these things, and I got to make money in the next 2 years, like otherwise all these things are going in my mind. And what I realized is, no, none of that is true. It could happen. Let's be ready for it. It also might not as quickly as possible. The singularity is near. It's true. It can happen. But one of the things that I'm realizing, us entrepreneurs, what's really going to happen though with AI, I'll go off on a little tangent, right? What's actually more likely to happen versus the Terminator scenario or mass unemployment, which might happen, is let's look at the day-to-day work, right? If you look at day-to-day work, what really is going to be is, when I look at myself now, what I'm able to do, like I write a lot of LinkedIn posts now, and I use ChatGPT to do it. I think it's a perfect example. I use ChatGPT to do it, right? But what do? I do the same thing I always did with LinkedIn posts, but the way it happens is different. I dictate. I'm like, what's the subject line? I wrote a post yesterday. It was how kite surfing is analogous to testing, and how I'm learning to jump like 15 meters in the air, and how I'm testing every bit of it. I made this whole analogy to it. But all I did was I just babbled for 20 minutes to ChatGPT. And it's, oh, okay, here are the main points. And then I'm like, ask me 10 more questions. Great. And then it gave me this whole punchy story. Now, was it me or was it ChatGPT that wrote it? It just organized my thoughts and put it more coherently. And then I had to make me a picture and an image with it. Now, I still would have done all that, but I would have sent it to a copywriter to help me with it. I still would have dictated it to them. We would have gone back. They would have asked me all their questions. It would have taken a few days or weeks to build that. I would have then sent that post to a graphic designer. They would have designed it. And then I'd have my admin post it for me. And now, again, I just have a conversation with it. We go back and forth. It still takes 45 minutes. I could do it quicker, but I want something really powerful. And then I post it, or I schedule it. But look at the difference. So we replaced the graphic designer. We replaced the copywriter. Now, did they go away? Not necessarily, because what I'd really like is somebody to manage me and manage that process. And it allows everybody, when I go into marketing now, because I also might have used to just sent it to a marketing agency or manager and they might have done it, right? But now it allows everybody to be their own leader. And I think that's what's going to be necessary you look at any AI expert, what we really need now is every department is going to transform from being accountable to their time, to accountable to their output. And it doesn't matter how much time you spend on it. Now, we should pay people for a 40-hour work week or a salary based on that. But whether they work, I don't really care if somebody works 20 hours or 50 hours. Sorry if you have to work 50, but I need an output. I'm paying for an output. I'm paying for a job to be done. I want you accountable to that KPI, and that's what we need. So now if everybody's their own individual leader in an organization, that's what we need when I look at orgs. Now bringing to entrepreneurship, and my long-winded way of coming back is, I think there's going to be millions more entrepreneurs in the next few years, partially because in this transition, there's going to be some downsizing. There's going to be some shrinking of corporate jobs, but those individuals are wildly capable, and people are going to need to reinvent themselves. And if they could lead their own fiefdom, and what used to be a 10-person agency now is one because of all their agents they have under them of AI. That's, I think, where we're going in a nutshell, which isn't necessarily so scary for me. I think it's intimidating for a lot of people. But anybody on this show, it should be exciting, because us as entrepreneurs, it allows us to move quicker, move more dynamically, spend a lot less time, and with a lot less resources. So we could finally fulfill on what we want to do way quicker.
Very interesting, and I think very valuable information. Do you think that, I was talking to someone else on my show, which hasn't been released yet, about the first $1 billion solopreneur business. Do you think now with AI that's now possible?
Oh, of course it's possible.
All right, probable then.
Yeah. It will happen. But look, there's a huge issue with looking at entrepreneurship as these headlines. I want to be the next Zuckerberg. I want to be the next Facebook. I want to be the next Uber. Cool. Learn from them. You're not going to be them. There's 10, 20, 30 companies like that. We're not going to be them. No, we might do really well. We might be a $1 billion company, but to be a $1 trillion company, let's be real, those are far and few between. So to use that as, to say there'll be a $1 billion company and use it for the litmus test, that's what we need to do and what we need to look like. And that's now our North Star is complete and utter malarkey. The core business principles will and have not changed. Do I want to be a solo founder? Again, I run my consulting agency alone. But to start a startup again and be alone? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Do I think it's a good idea? I've done this so many times. At some point, you will burn out. I will burn out. Regardless of all my ninja wisdom, at some point, I will want to F off for a month. And I want somebody else picking up the ball and not be me on the weekends, picking up phone calls, putting out the fires. I want somebody by my side because we will be better. There is no reason not to. It's also still the very first litmus test that investors go to is, does this person have a co-founder? Meaning, has this person convinced somebody else that this idea and they're great and to put their sweat equity into this? So will there be a $1 billion solo founder? Yes. Do I think it's a good idea to be one? Absolutely not.
Good advice. That was great.
Sorry, that's my little.
How do you think you've been able to grow your consultancy side from that idea into a high impact advisory firm?
Trust, good friends, and just being authentic. Like trusting myself that I can do this and I will find clients and clients will come to me. Trusting that my friends will help and support me and make great intros for me and help me find them. And yeah.
So you've taken on the role as fractional CRO for some companies. How do you build sustainable revenue engines for your clients, and how has that evolved?
It really comes down to finding the right North Star. It's like, where is product market fit? Everybody wants to, you could build a revenue engine, but do you have the right product for the right demographic of client? And do we have the right way to get in front of them? That's it. The rest is execution. So for me to say, oh, you need to use this 12-step process to market to client, malarkey. There's another word I like to use, but you're British, so I think
That's
malarkey is
fine. You can use either. It's
one of
fine.
your words. But it really just comes down to, does our product work? Do people absolutely love it? Do the right demographic of people absolutely love it? And can we get in front of them in an effective, cost-effective way that they will say yes? That's everything. So how do we find those three things? And when we find it, the rest is just execution. Execution is just, it's not easy. It's just doing the work.
So how do you help your clients work out those three areas?
Lots of testing. But first of all, by breaking it down and identifying those three things and decompressing it. So does your core product actually work? A lot of times it doesn't. Right? Does your core product actually match a demographic of individuals or corporations that want to buy it? Or if you're going after big corporations and that's your plan, it takes 18 months to see money, 2 years. Does that actually work? Finding clientele that could pay you now, finding that balance. A lot of time it's that yin and yang and balancing act to find that, right, in that step ladder. So it's really working on who's this perfect, ideal Goldilocks client and finding that magic. Like the only way you get $1 billion solo founder is they get lucky and found that product market fit and people to buy that they don't really need to sell much and it just goes. So it can happen. But it's how do we find that sauce even as a team is hard. But if you find that, called product market fit, everything's easy. Now, even once you find product market fit, cool, can you effectively, with cost per acquisition with your CAC, get to that clientele? Now, I didn't answer your question at all, but it really is just deep diving on those three things. And I don't know how to answer that question without taking 3 hours on each one.
That's fine. No, I get that. It was a little bit of an unfair question. It's just to get out from you those things that people that are listening and watching out there is actually going to make a change in their or their way they're approaching their business.
It really is simple. Break out those three components and then go. Is my product working? How do I empirically test that? Is it working? Are my current clients responding to this? And do they love it? Do I have a net promoter score of 9 or 10? Are they telling everybody about it? And it'll tell you. And it's okay, people, when you have product market fit, your market goes, just take my money. Just take it. I want this. I have to have this. Take it. I don't care. Just take it. Take my money. Here. That's product market fit. If you don't have that, you don't have that. So it's either your market is wrong and who you're selling to or your price point, right? Or your product. Switch one of those. But you got to have that. If you have that, everything's easy. It's hard finding that. So again, it's more testing. It's are you testing and you're seeing data now. You don't even have to run a new test. It's do you have that or people just take my money? No, probably not. So what's wrong? Look at one of those two things first.
How would you say that you've evolved as a leader?
I've gone through many different iterations, but I think what today is what you get. And I think your questions have brought out my true authentic self today. And I'm coming off a 3-day holiday, but the way I've evolved is I've gone from do what I say and this has to be done to thinking in my head to, okay, this is how I authentically feel. This is what I authentically think. Let me just be transparent. Let me just share what is here. Let me just put it out here. Let's have a conversation about this mess. And what are we going to do about this mess? And how are we going to elevate it together? Versus, this is what we're doing.
No, I get it. And what's the role of coaches and mentors? Have they helped you along the way, or has it been a journey for you of self-discovery?
It is certainly some huge people along the way, including my business partner, Bond Summit, all my co-founders along the way, some really great coaches that I've been working with I've had a personal coach for the last 10 years. There's been a tremendous people supporting me along the way, some tremendous programs, like I said, like Landmark and Tony Robbins, and probably 150 to 200 personal growth and development books, maybe more. and all sorts of learnings along the way. Probably way more than that, actually, if I think about it. Probably more than 500. So it's just been this thirst for knowledge and seeing what works and failing, by the way. And failure has also been a huge teacher of growth of what just does not work.
So what would you say your risk appetite is, and has it changed over the years?
Yeah, so that's the same thing with risk appetite, right? When I was younger, I had all the time in the world to make mistakes. Now I feel a little pressure of, no, I still could take risks, but it's definitely gone down a little bit. I don't want to bet the farm as quickly and easily. But my risk appetite, I say this, it's like gambling. It's like, I love to win, I hate to lose. I never gamble because I hate to lose.
Good answer. So what's the plan for the next 2 to 5 years for you and your business?
More growth, more impact, right? How do I maintain the level of, I don't want to say effort, but the amount of time? And so how do I spend the same amount of time and 10x my revenue growth and my impact, right? That's the goal, because the amount of time I put in right now, and I could put a lot more effort in that time, and I'm continually working on that, but the amount of time I put out allows me to have a whole rich life, and that's what I want to continue to focus on. More impact, more growth, aka more revenue.
Look, we're coming to the end of the interview. I ask the same 6 questions to all of my guests. They're quick fire questions. They don't need a quick fire answer. First question is, what's the best decision you've made?
Best decisions I've made was leaving my family business, selling my booze carriage, and moving on from my quest.
What impact did those things have on you? Did it make you...
A whole new life each time. I'll relate to my family business. The path that I was on would have led to an aggressive New Yorker living a very similar life as I would have had golden handcuffs, had 2 weeks vacation, and been always stressed and always aggressive, just happy to play tennis once a week.
What's the best piece of advice you've been given?
Stump me there. The best piece of advice. The thing that pops in my mind is that definition of wisdom that I spoke about earlier, which is if you could learn from others' mistakes, as if they're your own,
You'll move faster.
that is a definition that will completely change your life.
I totally agree. And next question, who's the person that's helped you most in your career?
I think my parents. Yeah, my parents always being there for me. The more I speak to a lot of people, I'm really fortunate to have the parents that I do. They always believe in me. Even when I'm down and out, they always believe in me. And they always have my back. They're never that squawking ear at doubt. Whether they believe in me or they believe it's going to work or not, they still have my back.
Nice.
And knowing that it really is tremendous. I think the last thing I ever wanted to do in my life was be that person that was on their couch, and it's the greatest motivation for never living with them again. But knowing that I'll never be on the street is also, it's really kind
That's
of
amazing. Next question, tell me about a regret that you have.
Which one? I don't really think in regrets. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of things that I would have done differently. One thing, there was a business decision that I made at Bond Summit where I happened to listen to some advisors knowing in my gut it was the absolute wrong thing to do, and I just threw my hands up because after 6 months of arguing, I was tired, and it cost me a lot of money. I regret that.
Was there a time when you wanted to give up, and what pulled you through to continue?
I think there's been many times where I've gone to bed being like, fuck this. And what pulls me through is I don't give up. It's in hate, like you could see my eyes light up. It's from being a wrestler. Like the time to win. I remember there was a match in college. We went into double overtime, and the guy was better than me, much better than me, much better technical. But I remember looking at him in the eyes, and this is 20-something years ago, and we both knew I wanted it more. And just that look in double overtime he just was like, fuck it. He just couldn't go anymore because wrestling, a normal match is hard enough. This was a normal match to get into the quarterfinals or to be a place finisher, and we were both done by then. But I just wanted it more, and I got it. So I just don't give up.
Great. Tell me something that most people don't know about you.
Somebody else asked me a similar question to this. What people don't know about me? You normally stump people with this one?
To be honest, these questions can have a sort of thought-provoking, reflective response. That's quite regular. I don't think you're any different from all of my guests.
So, I'm not unique? Sorry, ask me the question one more time.
Tell me something that most people don't know about you.
People don't know. I could say I'm dyslexic, but I talk about that frequently. I could say I'm a good cook, but everybody knows that. I post about that and host dinners all the time. What people most don't. That I'm actually, two things. One, that I'm quite soft, and one-on-one, I'm very personable when it's not about business, and really soft and empathetic. And the other thing is, I was going to say, I could be quite lazy. I'm either going or I'm sitting on the couch watching something, or I could be quite lazy.
They often say the best entrepreneurs are actually lazy because they find the most efficient ways of doing things.
Yeah, but when I'm lazy, I'm like, I'm not nice to myself. Unless I'm completely knackered after working out or
fair
something.
Enough. What does legacy mean to you?
That word fucks everybody up, part of my French. And I had a conversation with my coach about that not so long ago. And I was like, yeah, it does mess me up. I'm letting it go. It's egoic. Right? Even now, thinking about it, it doesn't matter. Be great to my legacy, I want to be great to my friends. I want to be great to my family. I want to have a rich and fulfilled life. My legacy. There's probably 100 people in the world, in history, that will remember you 100 years later, let alone 1,000 years later, let alone... Name 3 people from 1,000 years ago. Or
I'll tell you something, Rob.
Okay, Marcus
something
Aurelius,
I was told, this was a while ago when I asked this question, was you will pretty much only be remembered by 3 generations. So your parents, your kids, and probably your grandchildren.
Right, and none of that is actually legacy. That is who you were as a human to them.
So what? So let me ask you, what? So what do you think legacy is?
I don't know. I actually don't know, and I've never pondered that question. But to answer your question, most people's legacy will be their family, and not much more. So to spend our mental space spiraling on that, it's just going to mess us up.
Good answer. I totally agree, because I often get an answer which I really resonate with. If I've had an impact on people's lives, that's my greatest legacy. And I think that's a good answer.
Yep. But I love making a huge impact in everybody I meet. And I think the hack to life, a better question is like a hack to life is what people say about you when you're not in the room.
Yeah, I agree. And lastly, where can people find you if they want to reach out to you or find out more about your business?
Rob Matzkin at Gmail, robmatzkin.com, Rob Matzkin on LinkedIn. Just put me in, you'll find me. And always happy to have a conversation about any of the subjects that we spoke about today. Hopefully I was a little thought-provoking on a few of the subjects, but if you need help growing your business or fundraising, give me a shout. Happy to have a 30-minute talk and just to shoot the shit and see where I can make a difference.
Thank you so much, Rob. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Mark.